Have you just started earning and want to make sure you are making the right choices? Well, then, you are in the right place. Welcome to the Foundation Years, a Beyond Piggy Bank series. I'm George, and in each episode, we explore simple, practical ways to build your financial foundation before life gets more complicated. You don't need a financial degree, and you don't need a lot of money to begin. You just need the right decisions made early enough to matter. Let's set the foundation. In the last episode, we talked about the enemy in your wallet: credit cards, installment plans, personal loans for things that lose value the moment you buy them. We looked at the numbers, and the numbers were not pretty. But I want to make something clear today. Debt is not the enemy. Some debt, used correctly, at the right time, for the right thing, is a powerful financial tool available to you. The difference between the two is not always obvious, but there is a framework for telling them apart. And once you have it, every debt decision you ever make becomes clearer. Ray Dalio is the founder of Bridgewater Associates, one of the largest and most successful hedge funds in the world. He has spent decades studying debt, how it works, how it builds wealth, and how it destroys it. And his way of separating good debt from bad comes down to one question: does this debt produce more value than it costs? Most people ask the wrong questions. Can I afford the monthly payments? Is the interest rate okay? Those are the wrong questions. The only questions that matters is, does this debt produce more value than it costs? If yes, it can work in your favor. If no, it is working against you. Hold that question in your mind as we go through each type of debt. You do not need to invoke it by name every time. You just need to ask it honestly before you sign anything. Let's start with the biggest one. For most people in this life stage, a mortgage will be the largest financial commitment they ever make. At its core, a mortgage is borrowing to acquire an asset, something real, something that in most markets over time holds or increases in value. And every payment you make builds equity, ownership in something that belongs to you. Compare that to rent. Rent is not wasted money. It buys you flexibility. But rent does not build equity. Every payment leaves and nothing returns. A mortgage does two things simultaneously. It gives you a place to live, same as rent, and it builds ownership, something rent never does. That is why, in principle, a mortgage is productive debt. But how much you borrow, what deposit you put down, the rate you fix, and the market you buy in, all of these determine whether that principle holds in practice or not. Get any of them badly wrong, and productive debt becomes a burden very quickly. We will go deep in all of it: deposit, rates, fixed versus variable, and the full rent versus buy decision, in a dedicated bonus on mortgage later in this series. For now, the principle is clear. A mortgage, used wisely, is one of the best uses of debt available to you. Now let's talk about the debts many of you already have before you even start earning: student loans. The convention wisdom is straightforward. Education is an investment in yourself. Therefore, student debt is good debt. Well, I want to challenge that because I don't think it's that simple. Whether a student loan is productive debt depends on three things working together. All three have to make sense. If any of them is badly out of proportion, the debt fails, whatever the diploma says. The first is the salary uplift. Does the degree lead to meaningful higher income than you would have earned without it? For some degrees, in some fields, the answer is clearly yes. For others, the honest answer is less clear. That does not mean those degrees have no value. It means you need to be honest about the financial return. Specifically, separate from the personal or intellectual value of the education. The second is the size of the debt. A useful rule of thumb is your total student debt should not exceed your expected first-year salary after graduation. Borrow more than that, and the repayment timeline becomes very long and interest compounds aggressively against you. The final one is interest rate, and this varies dramatically by country and loan type. In some countries, the US for example, private student loans can carry rates of 8 to 18%. At those rates, the debt grows quickly if repayments are slow. In much of Europe, where universities cost far less and rates are lower or even subsidized, the same analysis produces a very different answer. A few thousand euros borrowed in Portugal or Germany for a degree that adds significantly to your earning power is clearly productive. Hundreds of thousands of dollars borrowed for a degree in a field with limited job prospects and modest starting salaries that can fail the test badly, regardless of how the loan is labeled. The honest question before taking on a student debt is not, is education a good investment? Well, education often is, but the debt that finances it is only good debt if the numbers actually work. How much are you borrowing? What will you earn? What is the interest rate? If you cannot answer all three, you are not ready to sign. Well now, not all debt falls cleanly into a category, and pretending it does would be dishonest. A car is the most common example, and the one that trips people up the most. In most cases, borrowing to buy a car is unproductive debt. It depreciates the moment you drive it away. It generates no income, and by the time the loan is paid off, you have paid more than the car was worth, and the car itself is worth considerably less than when you bought it. But life is not always that clean. What if you need a car to get to work? What if without it you lose the job or cannot take the job in the first place? Then the car is enabling your income, even if it's not directly generating it. And suddenly, the math changes. The question becomes, does having this car allow me to earn more than the loan cost me? If the answer is yes, it can be justified. But, and this matters, reluctantly and with discipline. Not the car you want, the car that works, the cheapest reliable option that gets you where you need to go. Because the moment you start upgrading the car beyond what the job requires, you have crossed back into unproductive territory. You are no longer borrowing to enable income. You are borrowing to drive something nicer. Those are completely different decisions dressed in the same logic. The same applies to anything in this gray zone. A laptop for a freelance business. If you genuinely cannot do the work without it, and the work generates more than the laptop costs, it passes. Tools of a trade, equipment that enables income. If the thing you are borrowing for directly enables income greater than the cost of borrowing it, it passes. If it's a better version of something you already have, or something you want rather than need, it does not. And here is the honest truth about gray zone decisions. Most people already know which side they are on. They know whether they are borrowing because they need it or because they want it and need to feel okay about the decision. The question to ask is not, can I justify this? People can justify almost anything. The question is, does this produce more than it costs? These are very different questions. And the gap between them is where most debt mistakes live. Even good debt at the right time can damage you. A mortgage is productive debt. But if you take one before your emergency fund is solid, before your high interest debt is cleared, before your income is stable enough to absorb a shock, it does not stop being good debt in theory, but it just becomes unmanageable in practice. One bad month, a job loss, a medical bill, a repair you didn't see coming, and suddenly the mortgage repayment that felt manageable becomes the thing that keeps you awake at night. The order matters as much as the category. And the order for this life stage is actually quite clear. First, clear the unproductive debt. Credit cards, installment plans, personal loans for things that are already losing value. This is episode 4 territory. And it comes first because unproductive debt compounds against you every single month you carry it. Every month you delay is expensive. Get it done. Second, build and protect the emergency fund. Episode 3. This is not optional, and it is not something you do after investing. It is the buffer that stops a bad month from becoming a financial crisis. Without it, one unexpected event forces you straight back into the unproductive debt you just fought to clear. All that work undone. Third, build the investment engine. Your portfolio, regular contributions, compounding in the background. The earlier this starts, the more time it has to work. Even small amounts matter here, especially at this life stage. Episode 6 will cover this in full. Fourth and finally, when the time is right, when the numbers genuinely work, when the foundation underneath is solid, consider productive debt. A mortgage, a business loan, something that passes the test honestly and completely. Keep in mind, this sequence is a principle, not a rigid rule book. Life does not always follow the order. Some of you already have a mortgage. Some of you have student loans you are already repaying. You cannot go back and redo the sequence from scratch. What you can do is understand where you are and move in the right direction from here. If you have unproductive debt sitting alongside a mortgage, the unproductive debt is still the priority to clear. If you have no emergency fund and a mortgage, building the buffer is still urgent. The sequence is not about starting over. The sequence is about knowing what to prioritize next. Here is what ties episode 4 and 5 together. Debt is not good or bad by nature, it's a tool. And like any tool, what matters is whether you are using it or it's just using you. Unproductive debt uses you. It takes money from your future and delivers nothing in return, except the thing you wanted right now. And the interest compounds just as reliably as your investments do, just in the wrong direction. Productive debt, used correctly and at the right time, can accelerate everything. A mortgage that builds equity, education that multiplies earning power. These are not just acceptable, they can be smart. But smart requires honesty. Honest about the numbers, honest about the timing, honest about whether the thing you are borrowing for actually passes the test, or whether you are just very good at convincing yourself it does. In the next episode, we talk about your portfolio. Now that the foundation is taking shape, emergency funds solid, bad debt understood, good debt framed correctly, it is time to build the engine. What does a portfolio look like at this life stage? What should you actually be investing in? And how do you start if you're starting from zero? That will be episode 6. And if you want to go deeper on mortgages, I will cover it in a dedicated bonus episode later in the series. The deposit, the rates, fixed versus variable, rent versus buy, well, all of it. I am George. This is the Foundation Years, a Beyond Piggy Bank series. Let's set the foundation.